We're going to look at the law of demand, and hopefully you've printed these off. And if you need any help, go ahead and watch this video as it works through. So this is the basics that we have to understand before we can actually start shifting demand curves. So when we're talking about the willingness and the ability of buyers to purchase a good or service, we're talking about demand. So remember, we're talking about willingness and ability. From your notes, you know that it's all the possible prices, and we're also looking at a specific period of time. So according to the law of demand, as the price of a good increases, the quantity demanded of that good decreases. So, and once again, going back to your notes, this makes perfect sense. When prices go up, we typically buy less. When prices go down, we typically buy more. Law of demand. So the law of diminishing marginal utility states that as a person consumes additional units, and remember, marginal means additional, utility means satisfaction. So as you consume additional units of the same product, your satisfaction decreases. So the only way that they can get you to purchase more is if they lower the price. Price and quantity demanded have an inverse relationship. Once again, as price increases, quantity demanded is going to go down. And when price goes down, quantity demanded is going to go up. And then the demand curve typically slopes down and to the right. And we'll look at that later. So part B, you can read these instructions. I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next page. These are yours. I'm not going to spend any time reading those. So if you need to pause this to read them, go ahead. So what we're looking at here is a demand curve. And so once again, we're talking about your willingness and ability to purchase, ironically enough, concert t-shirts. So when the price is 15, the quantity demanded is 10. As the price comes down to 10, the quantity demanded goes up to 20. When the price comes down to 5, the quantity demanded is 30. So we're not looking at someone's individual demand here, we're looking at a market demand. And so that's really, really important, is to understand the difference between if I look at my individual demand versus everyone in that particular market. So what we're looking at here is everyone in the market for concert t-shirts. So when it says, suppose that the concert promoters decide to increase the price of t-shirts to $15. So we're starting at A at $10. If they increase the price, the quantity demanded is going to go from point A up to point B, and the quantity is going to decrease from 20 to 10. We're moving on the same curve. This is extremely important. When you are only changing price, you are not changing demand. A change in demand would cause you to draw a whole entire new curve. So right now, all we're doing is changing price. And so when the price goes from $10 to 15, our quantity decreases from 20 to 10. So this is point B. We're moving on the same curve. Then it says, suppose that concert promoters have an excessive quantity of t-shirts that they want to get rid of, so that they drop the price to 5. So we're going to go from point A to point C, moving on the same curve, because all we have done is change the price. Going back to what I said before, a change in price does not change your demand. All it does is change your quantity demanded. So we're going from a price of $10 where our quantity is 20, price of $5 to where our quantity is 30. So point C. What we're looking at here are 4 different people's demand for CDs. And I'm going to have you, all you have to do is at $5, you're going to add all of these up and get your total. So you can do that. And what I want you to see is, even though everyone's individual demand for CDs is different, when you get the total, the same effect is going to apply. That at a higher, or excuse me, at a higher price, the quantity is going to be lower. Then when we get to $5, the quantity should be higher. So as price goes up, the quantity is going to go down. That is true for individuals. And then we add them up, it's going to be true for the total. So fill in the blanks of the last column. You can do that. Is the market demand a specific number of CDs? Why or not? Why not? And once again, going back to your notes, you have to understand that when we're looking at a specific price and a specific quantity. We are not talking about demand, we are talking about quantity demanded. I cannot stress this enough. If you cannot get the difference between demand and quantity demanded, there's no point in going on. Come and see me. This is extremely important. So is the market demand a specific number? No, it is the whole entire curve. It is all of the various prices and quantities that we are willing and able to purchase. Suppose the price of CDs rises from $15 to $25. So when we go from 15 to 25, you should notice that the quantity is going down. So what happens to the total number of CDs the 4 consumers want to buy? It is going to decrease. Is this a change in demand? The answer to that is absolutely not. All we have done is changed the price. The price does not change demand. The only thing we have done is change the quantity. So you can go ahead and do this next one where it says plot the demand of CDs. It should be a downward sloping curve. At the higher prices, the quantities are going to be lower. As the prices come down, the quantities are going to go up. And then you can skip this because this is a demand question and not a quantity question. So that very last question here, you can go ahead and skip that until later. Why is the demand curve downward sloping? And in your initial notes, you took 3 reasons: the income effect, the substitution effect, and the law of diminishing marginal utility. So we need to make sure that we can do this. And so when we're talking about marginal, we're talking about additional. And when we're talking about utility, we're talking about the additional satisfaction that we get from consuming a particular product. And so this should not be too difficult. So we're looking at the satisfaction of purchasing polo shirts and purchasing steaks. So when we purchase none, obviously our utility is going to be 0. We're not going to put anything there. When we purchase 1, the satisfaction we get from that first shirt is 60. The total utility for 2 shirts is 100. The additional utility, since we're already getting 60, the term for this, or the measurement in utility, is actually utils. So we get 60 utils out of consuming 1. So if we get 100 out of 2, the additional is the difference between 60 and 100, and that is 40. So when we consume 3 polo shirts, our total utility is 130. But at 2, we already had 100, so the addition is 30. At 4 shirts, the additional utility is from 130 to 150, so that's an addition of 20. If we purchased another one, the difference is between 150 and 165, so the additional utility, or the marginal utility, is 15. And from 5 to 6, the additional utility, or the additional satisfaction, is 10. When we look at steaks, consuming 1 steak, our utils, our satisfaction is 20. When we consume 2 steaks, the total is 36, but we already had 20, so the additional is 16. If we have 3, the additional utility is 15. 4 steaks, from 51 to 65, it's an addition of 14. From 4 to 5, it's an addition of 13. And from 5 to 6, and it's addition of 12. So what you see is the satisfaction of consuming is going down. The total is still going up, so for whatever reason, we're still eating 6 steaks, but the next one that we consume is not as satisfying as the one before. So the only way that we can get you to purchase those additional units is to lower the price. And then what we need to do here is to graph this. So total utility is on these 2, and marginal utility is here. And so what you are going to do is look at a handout before. So at 0, it's 0. When we consume 1, the total utility was 60. When we consume 2, the total utility was 100. 3, the total utility is 130, which is in the middle. 4 is 150, which once again is in the middle. 5 is 165, so we're going to come up here just above. And 6, our total utility is 175, which is in the middle here. So when you connect those dots, what you see is an increase, but it starts to diminish till the point where you don't want to purchase anymore. Marginal utility, it's going to look a little bit different. We're going to start here, and our first unit that we consume is very satisfying. The next one starts to go down. And so the third unit, our marginal utility is 30. Our fourth unit, our marginal utility is 20. Our fifth unit is 15. And our sixth unit is 10. So that's what that curve looks like. So when we start at 0, no steaks at all, or excuse me, no polo shirts at all. Our first polo shirt is very satisfying. Our second one is not near as satisfying as the one before, and our satisfaction decreases with each one. So the only way to get me to purchase additional units is to lower the price. And so I'm going to let you go ahead and work through these two doing steaks since I've already done this one. And then down at the bottom, looking at the chart, you can conclude that total utility is always increasing, because we see that it increases. Marginal utility initially increases. When we go from consuming 0 to 1, we increase, and eventually it starts to decrease. And then the very last handout here deals with the income effect and the substitution effect. And once again, income effect doesn't have anything to do with your income going up. It has to do with your buying power. So how will the increase in price of a burger affect the purchase of burgers? When prices go up, quantity demanded goes down. Describe how the substitution effect changes your purchases. There's lots and lots of substitutes for hamburgers. So if they change the price of hamburgers, we will buy its substitute. And then the income effect, depending on how much money you have in your pocket and how much hamburgers are, that determines your buying power of those hamburgers. So if you have a fixed amount of money, if the price of the burger comes down, you can afford more. If the price of them goes up, you can afford less.